Hey guys, it's me again. I'm gonna talk about what kept us busy the last year, especially the last few months in the code arena. We hoped that by this date, by CakeFest 2013, we'd have at least a beta of Cake 3. Didn't happen. But we have done a lot of work on that. And I think we're close to delivering something. So let's see what we've done. But before that, I would like to emphasize that CakePHP is a project that is community-driven. So whatever we want to put into the project is something that comes out of the community and not a single corporation, company, set of clients. So whatever you want into the framework is what is actually there. So we measure what the people is asking for, and we just put it there. Even though we sometimes, and a lot of times, we do not agree with the direction the community wants us to go, we say, okay, the community is actually asking for this. I think there would be a benefit for them. They would be happier if they had this. So we just implement it. And another aspect of CakePHP being community-driven is that the more people that participate in it, the faster it goes. And yeah, when we started, all of us, the current core team, we were younger, we believed in magic and nice unicorns. But now we're older, but we're also wiser. We have a lot more experience, so we take better decisions now. So in general, people working in any organization will, of course, join at some point. They will get involved into things. They will get with some task on the way. They will finish some tickets. They will implement new features. They will discuss. And in the process, they get passionate about it. Or in the contrary, people that was already passionate about CakePHP started contributing and join the organization. So anyone that is passionate about CakePHP can just join. And I think a good example of that, I think probably is here, is Mark from Germany, Mark. That guy is passionate about it. And I think his passion brought it into the core. And he's done a lot of code in the past few months and put a lot of effort into it. And they also get experience. When I started doing CakePHP, I was a noob. So I think Larry loves that story where I challenged him, hey, this is not how you do PHP. Don't teach me how to do PHP. And well, he was correct. But you get experience. By just participating in a project, you get a lot better as a programmer. So a good reason for just trying is that you'll get better yourself. You also get bored sometimes. And that's what happened in any organization. You have a lot of people that got passionate about it, and then they see the next big toy, and they just jump into it, or just have another stuff to do. They don't have enough time. They just are bored, and nothing gets done. And that happens even to CakePHP and any other project. Also, people get married, have children. You get busier, man. So the busier you get, the less code you get done, unless, of course, you're Mark's story. If you're Mark's story, you can have 4 children, you can have 4 jobs, and you still do, I don't know, 4 releases a month of CakePHP. But yeah, we all get busier and get, apparently, with the exception of Mark's story, who is a robot, or a legion of Chinese people working behind the same name, we get busier. We also have jobs. So I don't think any of us in the core actually makes a living out of coding directly in CakePHP. We just have jobs, and we use, most of us, CakePHP at our workplace. But sometimes your project at your work has a higher priority than releasing the next version. And some, sad panda face, leave. So people leaving the project is sad, but also understandable, I guess. People with different interests, or people that will not have the time, or that are not into coding anymore, not into PHP anymore, not into life anymore. So yeah, what kept us busy? A lot of those reasons. So people joining, people getting passionate about it, people getting experience, people getting busier, people getting married. A lot of has happened this year. But the core team in general have a constant dream and a passion to make things better. And I think that's something that distinguishes us from any other project. I think the people that is there, even though we get busier, even though we get married, even though we have children, even though a lot of things happen to us, we have this commitment to every day maintain this framework, to make it better, and to support it. And, well, this is the summary, a very short summary, of the things we have dreamt about and actually made their way into the code. Hello, PHP 5.4. Finally, we're skipping 5.3. We've actually dreaming about 5.5 now that we have taken another year and 5.5 is out, 5.2 is in the verge of being released. So by the way we release 3.0, PHP 5.4 will be, I don't know, old news. So it's kind of a trade-off because now the market, as we predicted when we decided to go with this version, the market will be there when we release, will be here. So if we jump into 5.5, that will be, okay, I don't know, probably not a good decision. But as always, as I told you, CakePHP is community-driven, so whatever the community wants us to push and want us to go, that is where we're going to be. So namespaces, I do hate // You know // Okay, // I used to have a Spanish keyboard on my laptop. It's impossible to find. That character does not exist in the Spanish keyboard. So that's a // You should not have used that slash for namespaces. But well, we have done the job thanks to Juan Basso. He did this part of the work, a lot of work, I would say. And basically, we just converted the virtual packages, those that were in app uses, to use namespaces. And that type of code that I especially hate when you need to escape the // that you say, okay, // because you need to escape and then // again. There are a few lines in the code where you need to escape like 4 times the same slash. Hopefully you will not have to deal with it because we're maintaining the plugin syntax when you need to load a class. So if you say, oh, please load this data source, you don't specify the full namespace because that's dumb. You just say, hey, use the convention. That's the name. It still will find it where it's supposed to be. But you still have the freedom to specify a full namespace class as an argument of anything. Any questions about namespaces? Who hates namespaces? Who think it's awesome? Okay, quite a few people. Namespaces are great, especially because it allows us to communicate with our projects without stepping in each other's toes. But also namespaces introduce a lot of complications, things that were just there, like, oh, the class is here, it will not be there anymore. You are now actually forced to use a use statement or to write the full class. If you are in a namespace and you just want to throw an exception, you need to namespace the exception. So it's a lot more work, part of the evolution. But well, that's where the language is taking us to. Now we have a new unified config. And this is something that has been crazy in Cake 3 and in Cake 2 too. So probably you know that CakePHP uses, quite a few different ways of configuring stuff. Can you name a few?
Bootstrap.
Bootstrap is one. Core. The crazy database config. The crazy email config. We have a lot of different stuff how to configure, and sometimes you just use configure right, but you use router connect, you use I don't know, cache config, log config. So in the beginning of 3.0, we thought it was going to be a great idea to make everything into configure. So everything is going to be configured right. Awesome, right? Yes and no. Yes, exactly. That's actually the answer. It was great for some time until we realized, well, what if we change something here? Do we need to also change configure, the values there? Because they should be kept in sync, right? So there was kind of a spooky relationship between the values here and the behavior there. And that spooky relationship was not something worth keeping. So we ditched that implementation, and now we have a trait. Traits are great. It's an awesome way of copy-pasting code. We have a config trait that is shared among a lot of classes, and those classes now just take the configuration. So the pattern that we kept with config for cache and config for log now is replicated in mostly every class taking config. For example, email, the connections class, well, you name it. But finally, stuff like database config is gone. No more double underscore construct hack. But one thing that is coming, and probably this will piss a lot of people, the configuration file is now just one, actually two. There's bootstrap and app.php. But basically, bootstrap is just, you have a full control of what is loaded into the framework. It's like, the first line is load CakePHP. Second line, load my config. Third line, execute the application. So you have full control of what is loaded in the framework. So if you want to change something before loading the framework, after loading the framework, you do not want to load some classes from the framework, you're completely free to do it, which was almost impossible in 2.0. And this single file is an .ini file. So configurations will be static. You will not be able to put PHP on them. You can, of course, do PHP configurations if you like, but our recommended default is .ini. If you want to change configuration for production, you can just symlink the config file, or you can just deploy it with any configuration management system. One thing that allows and will allow people this new technique is to store configs in cache, for example, or to have a database stream of configuration, like you have an admin interface with some records that you can configure. So you load them into database, and you have this static file loading from database or loading from cache and storing in each of the specific classes, like cache, log, database, etc. Now we have Composer support out of the box. You can install CakePHP with Composer. And we're making it so the app folder can kind of coexist with the plugins. So plugins and app will be kind of the same, at the same level. They have kind of the same importance. And you will be also able to just import from other projects using Composer and using those libraries. What we're not going to do is going to the crazy Symfony way of having a bundle file. I'm not sure if you have worked with Symfony. They have a crazy file describing the bundle, which is like a tree of nested methods that is unreadable. So we're not going that way. We're still keeping conventions. It's like you load a plugin, and we assume that by the namespace when you load it, that is a plugin and it lives in this folder, and by CakePHP conventions, this is what it should be executed. Now we have a faster and better router. Have any of you ever wished of naming a root? Like every time I do HTML login, I just want to call the action login instead of typing users controller controller users actions login. Have you decided that once at least? Yeah, I have too a lot of times. Now you can have named roots, so you can have a router connect all the params, controller, action, params, etc., and you can name that root. This is the root for login. So when you do this HTML link, click here to login, you just name it login, and it will do the reverse routing for you. But also, I don't know what smoked Mark that day, but he got extremely intelligent, and he got it a lot faster. He got constant time. It doesn't matter if you have one root, 100 roots, 1,000 roots, reverse routing is always constant time. That's crazy. So it doesn't matter how many roots you have. The reverse routing, which is the craziest, the slowest thing in CakePHP, is now constant time, no matter how roots you have. How he did it is voodoo, man. I don't understand it. Now I encourage you to read the source code. Basically what he did is internally naming each route. So he gets the params, and he calculates kind of a hash of those params and gives it a name. So doing a table lookup of hashes is always constant time. Yeah, routing prefixes now uses namespaces, so no more admin_index in your controller. Now you have another, you can have app controller admin UsersController class, and have an index function, and that will route to /admin/users/index, which is awesome because you can make one controller extend the other, so you still can keep the same functionality, you can share it, but you don't have everything in the same giant class. Now we have a faster, consistent, and leaner event manager. This is great. When I created the event manager in 2.1, thanks for correcting me last day, it was in 2.1, I kind of did it like the standard way. There's only one way of implementing the observer pattern. That's what I did. But to keep backwards compatibility with 2.0 and old projects, I had to add a lot of fat on top of it to kind of wire things together. So that fat is gone, and it's now faster. It will not trigger the events if there are actually no listeners, or if the class actually does not implement the callback. So a good example is if you have helpers now in 2.0, for each helper you have, those helpers will get trigger a function, which is after render, after layout, before render, etc. That's for each of them, even though you don't implement any of those calls, right? So the new events manager will introspect those classes and say, okay, is this class actually implementing this function? Yes? Okay, let me attach it as a listener. So it got a lot faster. And this was done actually thanks to the community, this improvement. There was a guy from Sweden that for college, he wrote a paper about the event system in CakePHP, and he determined what could be the potential gains of doing that technique. So he sent us his paper to the internal CakePHP account, and we just did it. So stuff like that is very awesome. People that is not just contributing code, but an actual white paper of how to make things better. We have a more feature-rich HTTPSOCKET class. The old one was just crazy. It was done in times of 1.2. It was really hacky. It was, if I remember correctly, done in a rush during a Cake Fest. And it was just kept that way for a long time. So we took the time to just proper decouple the subsystems inside it, and it comes with new features like automatic OAuth authentication and stuff like that. And in the model layer, well, this is my main concern. This is my main nightmare. It's a lot of work. A lot of work. And we knew it when we decided to not go neither keeping the old code or adopting something like Doctrine. Who likes Doctrine, by the way? Have you used Doctrine? Who doesn't like Doctrine? Okay, I like it and I hate it at the same time. It's great, but when you use it, you hate it. So I wanted to keep all the things that I like and try to stay away of all the things that I hate, which is hard. So this is how it looks. And basically what it is a lot of layers one on top of another. So I started with the simplest thing that could work, which is a string of a query and a cursor, and something that abstracts PDO or whatever other driver with the same exact interface. And I wanted it to be chainable, and I wanted it to be to feature every single thing from SQL. I did not want to hinder anything because I was lazy to implement it. I wanted every feature from SQL, from major SQL implementations. I wanted that in. So here you have an example. You create a new query, you pass a connection. You just select a few fields from a table. You can alias the table using array notation. And that actually returns the query itself. It doesn't return the records. So you have something that is there. It hasn't done anything. It's just an object that representing a query. Then if you want the result, in this example, you have a new query, same connection. You select a couple other fields. From another table, you pass some conditions, and you will notice two things here. One, it looks similar to 2.0. So the same system of parsing conditions was kept, so people wouldn't feel lost. But also you can notice that I'm passing an object, right? So we made it a lot more intelligent. It can detect basically any object that you can pass, and you can plug in types. You can pass an array, and you can say, when you see this array, cast it to something else. When you see an object of type user, cast it to something else. So you can basically tell the database layer to do whatever you want. And this is crazy, and this is awesome. You can pass a query object inside an union, inside select, inside from, inside where, inside limit, inside whatever function in the query, you can pass another query. So you can do subqueries incredibly easy. It also automatically, sorry that it's not enough space, automatically translates from the one dialect to the other. So are you familiar with the concat function? Have you noticed that in Postgres and in SQLite is quite different? Isn't that annoying? Well, what's happening here is that select can take a closure. This is just for not breaking the chain. You can actually get the query object and call it manually. But if you don't want to break the call chain, you can just pass a closure. You get the same query as first argument, and you return the list of IDs of fields that you want to be selected. And in this case, the query has a function called concat. You also have other functions like dative, date subtraction, date adding, intervals, etc. It has like the most common functions built in, and those will be translated with a dialect that the connection uses. So if you want to switch from Postgres to SQLite to MySQL, and you use the correct function, it's just automatic. And you can build your own functions, by the way. You also have smart association loading, and this is my favorite feature. Like, So you build a table. I'm just using like the procedural way of building a table. You can also create a table class and everything. So by default, it will inflect this into the table authors. And you say it has many articles. It will auto-inflate it to the articles table. And you say when you get the results, put the articles inside the articles property. And now you have strategies. What is that? So I'm telling it to use a subquery strategy for getting the has many records and also sort them. So when I find table, find all, I say contain article, and then to array, it does only 2 queries. One for getting the articles. One for getting the author, and one for getting the article, exactly. Do you remember how it's done in 2.0?
It does one query and then one for each row.
That's what happens. Sometimes you get one for each row, right? But also in CakePHP, it does 2 queries. But what it does is gets the articles, it gets all the IDs from the articles, and then it passes the IDs of the articles to the author table. It doesn't happen. Now, it's all one single query because it uses the subquery of the parent inside. And that in MySQL 5.6 is a lot faster. And when you have tons and tons and tons and tons of records in your database, it will thank you for it. You also can filter by has and belongs to many, which was impossible in 2.0. You can just say article has and belongs to many tag, so contain tag, but only filter. So it will do only one query using an inner join instead of getting the records matching. So you can say, get me all articles with the tag CakePHP, and it will do just one query. It has chainable custom finders. What? Just table, latest, popular, list, I like you, I love CakePHP, to array. So it will just chain all the finders. Each finder always returns the query. It does not return the results. It only returns the results when you say it. So you can always add more and more and more conditions to it. And which is good for caching. If you pass something to the view, a query to the view, and the view do not use the query at all, or the result, it will not do any query. So if you cache some block in the view, it will never do any of the work. It also has result streaming. Results are not fetched, then processed, and then returned to you. Each time you get a new record, it's get directly from database. So you can basically string millions of rows without consuming memory. You can stop finds with before find callbacks and just return the results so you can cache them. So this is a very common thing that you cannot do in 2.0 in an easy way. You also have map reduce. Have you ever used map reduce? Try to, at least. Yes? It's quite simple. There will be plenty of documentation on how to use it, and it's quite powerful. So if you want to post-process your results from the database only using a couple closures, that's the way to go. We also have built-in schema migrations. Finally, welcome to 2006. And well, a lot of other things in the 2.4 area, which I didn't mention for time reasons. There's been a lot of code, a lot of small improvement, a lot of nice features that when you have a framework of this size and this mature, it's actually hard to find something to make better. But people still find it, especially Mark. And well, welcome to KFest. This is the right place to figure out what's happening in the code and to actually help us doing it. Welcome.